And we're back with another episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don and Kevin. Kevin?
Don, how are you?
I'm terrific. How are you?
I'm really great today, thanks.
You know, we have a very unique guest today.
This is what we call a good get.
This is going to be fun. Because we've got a filmmaker, and I don't know how old he is, but he's not anywhere near my age.
No.
So he's a young, up-and-coming filmmaker that's already been getting awards. And anyway, his name is Emilio Miguel Torres. He works at the Scottsdale Unified School District and Communications Department, but he also went to the NYU Film School, and obviously he did some talented work there because the first movie that you wrote and directed premiered at the Phoenix Film Festival recently, and Emilio won. Congratulations. Filmmaker of the Year for 2025. That's unbelievable.
Thank
Way to
you.
go, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Fantastic. Fantastic. So the film you featured at the festival is titled The Ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's it all about?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for that warm introduction. I directed a feature film called The Ladder. It's a sci-fi drama. I always like to tell people it's kind of a soft sci-fi because the sci-fi premise is more about a function of the storytelling, if that makes sense.
Kind of subdued, isn't it?
Yeah. It's definitely more of a grounded sci-fi. But it tells the story of Arthur, who's this aging Alaskan fisherman in a fishing town in Southeast Alaska called Ketchikan, Alaska.
I know that place.
It's actually my hometown.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you mentioned I went to NYU. When I was at NYU, I wrote a short film script, and in 2021, I made a 15-minute long short film that's also called The Ladder, and it was sort of a proof of concept of this feature film.
Yeah.
And that film went on to screen at festivals and win awards, and ended up getting distribution on Alaska Airlines. And basically, from the momentum of that short film over the past few years, I've been making this feature film. And basically, what the plot of the feature film is Arthur is getting older, so he can't really keep up with the demands of fishing. And also, you find out that he's grieving a late wife, and that his son, Ryan, who lives in New York, is kind of just getting further and further away from him as he gets older. And at this time of his life, he gets offered this procedure that lets him upload his memories into a synthetic copy of his 21-year-old self, and basically get a fresh start of life at 21 years old with all the memories and knowledge he has now. And so it's very attractive. But as the film, unfolds, you kind of get to experience the decision-making process with Arthur. And it's ultimately kind of asked the audience, if you had the opportunity to restart your life, would you?
I love this. One of the
Right?
things I've always thought about, and this is true, science fiction can become reality, and eventually it will, because if we get creative geniuses like you that come up with ideas, sooner or later, maybe 5 years, maybe 50 years from now, somebody will figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling you just opened the door to creativity for reality to come by what you put together. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been really interesting because, like I said, I started writing the short film in 2019, and just in the past 6 years of when I first started writing that script, there's already been so many advancements in technology between AI, quantum computer, biotechnology, where there's a lot of aspects of my story that aren't that far-fetched anymore, and so definitely can happen for a lot of science fiction where especially if you ground it like our film is, it's not that far off from reality.
Beam me up, Kevin. That's coming
Absolutely.
too.
I bet you're a fan of the Netflix series Black Mirror,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? You like it too?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Black
yeah.
Mirror was definitely a reference point for the show because Black Mirror also kind of does a similar thing that our film does, where every episode of Black Mirror is really about a theme or an idea that's relevant to all humans.
Yeah.
They just use a sci-fi premise to explore that.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing for our film.
It's pretty. I'm the second season. I know I got a lot to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
the new season is really good.
Is it
so-
good? Yeah, season
Yeah.
7, I think it is, or something,
Yeah.
right? So, what was it like seeing the first written, directed film that you produced on the big screen with a festival audience? That must have been awesome.
Yeah, no, it really was awesome. I've really been fortunate. I'm 24 years old. You mentioned I'm young.
You're a young pup. Yeah.
I had my first ever short film, my thesis film, Valor and Sacrifice, screen at a film festival in Seattle in 2021. And since then, I've actually had my short films screen at over 30 film festivals around the world, and now The Ladder has been selected in 6 festivals so far. And so, a lot of these festivals, not all of them are like Phoenix, where you're at a Harkins level theater, and none of them, like Phoenix, offer you, 3 screenings, as I experienced at Phoenix. And I think what really made the Phoenix Film Festival, and I know you were there, that made it so special, is that, I've now lived in Phoenix for the past 3 years, and so I've really built a community here. And so just having all my neighbors and friends and colleagues who kind of heard that I was making this movie but didn't really know much about it get to see it, it was really, really overwhelming in a positive way. But no, I mean, I just think about how hopefully this is just the beginning of my filmmaking career, of course. But when I was a kid, I just dreamed that one day I would be able to make a movie and I'd see my name in the credits in a movie theater. So I've experienced that.
He's got his life goal figured out by he's 24 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's all downhill from here, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm 3 times your age, and I'm still working on my goals.
So you're from Ketchikan, Alaska. I've
Yeah.
been there. Beautiful town. You've been there.
I did an Alaska cruise just last
That's
last
right.
June.
I forgot you did
Yeah,
that.
it was beautiful. Yeah.
So how'd you get from Ketchikan to the NYU Film School?
Yeah, well, definitely had a really interesting journey. I grew up in Alaska, as I mentioned. I was born in Utah and then lived in Texas for a few years, and then eventually ended up in Alaska. My dad doesn't like to stay in one place for too long, I guess. But when I was growing up in Ketchikan, something that's really cool about Ketchikan and ultimately why I chose to make this movie there is there's actually a really vibrant arts community. There's a community theater in Ketchikan called First City Players, and they do community productions. And growing up, I did all their arts camps and theater camps, and that's where I discovered storytelling as an art form that I loved. And so in high school, my family moved to Seattle, Washington. And in high school, I was doing theater, and then I also got involved with video production. And I've had a camera since I was like 8 years old and always just wanted to make movies. And really the idea of being a director was blending what I loved about theater and what I loved about working with cameras. And so in high school, I applied for NYU as my dream school. You have to submit like a 10-minute short film, and I made a short film, on the camera that I owned, and I edited in iMovie, and it got in, which was awesome.
Really?
And definitely when I got to NYU, I didn't come back, I didn't grow up in any wealth, but when you go to NYU, you do go to school with a lot of people who are very wealthy, and so immediately at film school, I definitely felt behind because there were people who had already worked on professional cameras, already edited professional software. So I was just the kid with, my camera and iMovie. So I definitely really tried to get my chops up, with my colleagues. And then I just fell more in love with film and knew that directing was what I wanted to do. And, and it's still what I'm pursuing now.
You know what this reminds me of? And there's an SUSD connection to this. Steven
I was gonna
Spielberg.
say, and you've heard that before.
Of course, yeah.
He went to Arcadia.
Yeah.
My wife actually went to school with him.
Oh, really?
Back in the day. And your story about carrying a camera around when you're 8 years old, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, no, there's a movie called The Fabelmans about him growing
It's
up.
a
I love
wonderful
that movie, yeah.
So I think we need to save this podcast and come back in about 20 years. When we have the next Steven Spielberg, we can have this. This podcast will be worth some money by then.
You can see why I was running through the theater, the Harkis Theater, the lobby of Harkis Theater, going, Emilio, come back. I need to talk to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Kevin got you to NYU. How'd you get to Scottsdale?
Yeah, so that, another story journey. So I was at NYU pursuing filmmaking, and really my sophomore year was when I kind of figured, I think I figured out how to do this directing thing, and I was really hitting my stride. And actually, the original plan was to shoot the latter short film in summer of 2020, but then something crazy happened that year, and I moved back home to Seattle where my parents lived, and I actually finished my degree online. And normally NYU is a 4-year program where your 4th year you do a thesis film, and that's really sort of your calling card for the industry. I kind of looked at how things were going for the film industry during COVID, and I was like, I would rather get out of school sooner and just try to figure it out than wait around. So I actually ended up graduating in 3 years, and my thesis film wasn't like a typical thesis film for NYU, but I was, at that time, I also had a long-distance girlfriend named Maggie, and she was going to Oklahoma City University, and then she actually transferred to ASU. So she was in ASU. I just graduated from NYU, and I needed a day job. So I actually started working for a school district in Seattle first that they had a videography position. So I did that, and I quickly fell in love with public schools and making videos about public schools. And actually, when Maggie was kind of planning her roots here in Phoenix, she was like, hey, you should move here. And so I started looking for jobs in Phoenix, and that's how I ended up doing education. And I had a different role at an organization called Stand for Children Arizona. They advocate for a lot of public school issues in the state. And then it was actually through that job, I was doing a documentary about public school funding, and I interviewed Superintendent Dr. Menzel.
Oh.
And it was through that interview that they were like, hey, we have a videography position at SUSD open. And so 2 years ago, I started working at SUSD. And actually, I haven't announced this publicly, so this is a podcast exclusive. But because of the momentum of my film and just sort of opportunities that have come out of winning Arizona Filmmaker of the Year, I actually did just inform Dr. Menzel and my boss that I'm not going to be renewing my contract with SUSD because I'm going to be pursuing full-time freelance filmmaking and work on my next feature film.
See, I knew it. I knew it.
Breaking news here in this podcast today. Loss for SUSD, but another milestone in your career to emulate Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
So you're on the right path, man.
Yeah, well, and I'm luckily enough 24 years old, so I don't have kids or mortgage yet,
Good
and
time.
so I'm a huge advocate for SUSD and public schools in Arizona, and I hope to still stay involved on those issues. But I want to, take the leap and try to pursue this filmmaking thing full time.
So you still have a little bit of time left at SUSD. Tell us a little bit about what you do there, what your role is there.
Yeah, so I work on the communications team, and really communications team for any district, but SUSD specifically, kind of serves two functions. One function is just, informing the community and staff and students of what's going on, and then the other is really a marketing department, supporting enrollment efforts, kind of highlighting unique features or programs at SUSD. So the past 2 years, I've loved my job, and basically what I do is I make videos that kind of highlight our schools and our programs and all the cool things that make SUSD special. And then we have a podcast called the SUSD Spotlight Podcast.
Okay.
Christine.
Yeah, I produce that. And and I also run social media and kind of just help with all marketing efforts digitally wise.
That's pretty cool. That's a good job. They're going to have big shoes to fill. Young but big shoes to fill when you exit there. When do you leave?
At the end of the school year, but there'll be a transition period. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure everybody will miss you there because you obviously bring a lot of talent. I wanted to ask you what it felt like when it was announced that you won the Filmmaker of the Year. What did you see it come in, and what did it feel like when you learned that news?
No, it was completely unexpected. One, because, something I was really honored is that the latter was actually not programmed in the Arizona category of the Phoenix Film Festival. The Phoenix Film Festival has many different categories, and there's a sort of like an Arizona short films, Arizona films that are made by Arizona filmmakers. The latter was actually programmed in the U.S. feature competition, which is the top competition category at the festival, and it was competing with films, that have premiered at even bigger festivals and things like that. And I was really honored to meet all those filmmakers. And the festival actually flew out our lead actor, Keith Smith. So he was there.
Yeah.
You saw him for that Q&A.
Oh.
So it definitely felt like a great honor. And actually, Jason Carney, the CEO of the festival, I was talking the other day, and he said, it's been a long time since an Arizona filmmaker was in the main competition category because it's open to everyone in the U.S., So I wasn't expecting to even qualify for this award, but basically the Phoenix Film Foundation gives an award called the Arizona Filmmaker of the Year, and it's someone that they think I think has not only made a good film, but also kind of making an impact in the community. And it's been really cool because when I moved to Phoenix in 2022, and I remember I started attending Phoenix Film Festival and Arizona Production Association events and start networking, and I don't judge people, here's this kid who's 22 and he says he's from Alaska and I'm like, I'm going to make a movie. I think there was always an air of like, okay, kid, we'll see if you make a movie,
right.
So after 3 years of working on it and making it happen to actually premiere it there, we had basically 3 sold out screenings over the festival, and then to win that award, it was a huge honor. And I think it's really indicative of the fact that, even though I made my movie in Alaska and I do hope to make my next feature here in Arizona, that I've really cultivated a community here. And what was really special about the award, and I don't know if you know this, but my dad, who actually is Arthur's loosely based on my father, he heard that there was an award ceremony, and my parents have some flight benefits through Alaska Airlines because my mom's worked there for many years, so he can fly standby. So without telling me, he booked a flight to come to Phoenix, and he literally landed right when the award ceremony started. He went straight to the theater. He happened to just walk in right when I was winning the award.
Oh my gosh.
So I was crying, and it was this huge moment. It was just definitely a just crazy moment to happen.
Maybe that's part of a sequel that you could develop moving forward, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The latter two.
That's awesome. I'm curious about the festival business because we talked before about you have a number of festivals lined up that you're going to be presenting. And how does it work behind the scenes? Take us behind the scenes of the festival business.
Yeah, so obviously there's different tiers of film productions, right? Like when you go and make a movie, that's obviously going to be different if you're an independent filmmaker versus if you're making something for a studio, right? And for the independent filmmaking sort of tier, film festivals are really where that tier of production thrive. There are film festivals all across the country and all around the world. There's obviously really big ones that people know, like Sundance and Cannes and Tribeca. And a lot of those festivals tend to premiere work from more seasoned industry people as well. But then there's these regional festivals like the Phoenix Film Festival that really are championing independent filmmaking voices. And so basically for an independent filmmaker, you want to get your film out there find an audience, get distribution. And really one of the best ways to do that is to win awards and to screen at festivals, because then you get the attention of those industry people. And so for most filmmakers, you know, when you finish a short film or an independent film, you submit it off to film festivals, and it's really subjective, because you have to imagine if you're programming a festival, you only have so many screening times to program movies. You don't want to program too many movies of the same style. So even if your movie's amazing, that's not a guarantee it's going to be programmed anywhere, you know? So you submit to many festivals, and then you anxiously wait to hear back. And of course it's crushing when it's rejection. But then there'll be a festival that's like, hey, we really like your film. And it's really, you know, I've had, like I said, my short film screen at many festivals, and it's a special experience to be a short filmmaker. But a lot of times shorts are programmed in blocks with other shorts. Like you might get programmed in an hour or 2 hour block with 5-6 other short films with your 15-minute short film. With a feature, you have a full block, so you definitely get a little more attention from festivals and things like that. So I've experienced a really warm welcome from all the festivals we've screened at. We had our world premiere at the Fargo Film Festival, which screens at a historic theater in Fargo, North Dakota, and that was really awesome. And it was a completely new audience. I barely knew anyone in the audience, but some of my cast and crew flew out for it too. And then we actually went to Oklahoma City and for a Latino film festival, because I'm Mexican, Puerto Rican, and they program films made by Latino directors. And there we won Best Editing and Best First Feature Film. And then we went to the Phoenix Film Festival, and I just this last weekend was in Houston for the World Fest Houston International Film Festival, which is actually one of the oldest film festivals in the country for independent cinema. And we actually won an award there for First Feature Film. So definitely racking up the awards and going to different screenings.
You're going to need to build a couple more shelves in your place to put your awards on, man. That's for sure. Yeah. So you talked about cast and crew.
Yeah.
So talk about how you put that together, and what's the economics of putting a film like this together?
Oh yeah. Well, when I was a kid and first starting out in film school, it's just I get a camera and my friends and we just shoot something, and then I've sort of kind of upped the scale each time around. I've made a short film, and so this feature film was really like a real deal production. I wanted to make sure all cast and crew were paid. We shot for 14 days in Ketchikan, Alaska. Now, the thing about Ketchikan, Alaska is it's a really great artistic community, like I said, but there's not really an infrastructure for a film school or anything like that. So there's not a lot of local people who could just give up 14 days to crew on a film, right? So I actually hired mainly friends of mine from NYU. My cinematographer was my college roommate, Toby Romero, and my producer, Alexandria Hellman. She actually produced the short film as well. And they all came with us to Alaska for a month, and we shot the movie. Now, to get the money, we got funding from lots of different sources. We have a huge thanks to our official sponsor, Tongass Federal Credit Union, which is a credit union in Ketchikan. And I sort of went to them and was like, hey, do you want to sponsor this film? And they have a featured location in the movie, and all their marketing is on our poster and credits and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I grew up, my first savings account was with that credit union. So it was a good pitch that way. Local business owners obviously invested in the film. And then also we did a big crowdfunding campaign. We raised $55,000 through online donations, from different people who wanted to see the movie get made. Okay. But what's really cool is the cast. Aside from one supporting role and a couple of small roles, every cast member are actually actors from Ketchikan, and almost all of them are actors that I grew up doing community theater with. So it was really a homecoming experience. Actually, Keith, who's the actor who plays Arthur, he was there when I caught my first salmon. He was sort of like a mentor for me growing up. And so for him to play a salmon fisherman in this movie was really special. And Ty Hewitt, who plays the son in the movie, Ryan, he actually directed the first play I acted in. And
Are you serious?
Yeah, so
Really?
it was cool to kind of turn the tables and I get to direct him.
Where's he live at now?
He still lives in Ketchikan. He's actually a
does?
teacher there, yeah.
Amazing. So in addition to being a filmmaker and director, you got to be a fundraiser too.
Yeah, well, I think that's really also the pitch of our movie. I think our movie's good, and I hope everyone watches it because they like the story. But I also think it's a movie worth supporting because it was really a community-driven project. The entire Ketchikan community came together. They gave us free locations. They supported us with food, and it would be the type of thing where during those weeks that we were in Ketchikan shooting, we would realize we're missing a prop or we're missing something, and all I would have to do is post on our Facebook page, The Ladder, a feature film, and say like, "Hey, Ketchikan, we need a lamp or we need a boat," and all of a sudden we'd have 20 people being like, "We're down to help." And one thing I'm really proud of the movie is my production designer Natalia Ferrara. She sort of completely dressed the house that the majority of the movie takes place in, and it's really it has a lot of eccentric sort of Alaskan decorative pieces all around the house, and everything in that house was donated from different people in town, but all from different houses. So we might have a couch from this person, a table from this person. So it's really this mishmash of Ketchikan put on display in the movie.
That's homecoming, man.
Isn't that great?
That's homecoming.
Yeah.
Neighbors stepping up to help a young filmmaker who now is a superstar, a budding superstar, if not a current superstar in the business. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, I love it. And so when the ladder hits the place where people can see it, it's going to be streaming somewhere, do you think?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, basically right now we are touring film festivals. So, if you follow us on social media, we always announce when our screenings are. You can go to our website and see where our screenings are coming up. A major festival we'll be going to next is the Wyoming International Film Festival in July. And that festival's cool because they actually screened the short film version back in 2022.
Oh, really?
So we're returning now with the feature-length version. So festivals are a great place to come see the movie. You can meet me and do all those types of things. However, yes, eventually the plan is we will distribute the movie, and it's been really exciting because it's had some momentum. I've been in negotiation with some distributors and salespeople. So there's definitely a pipeline for us to get it out on streaming. So hopefully when our festival circuit ends later this year, we'll get it out and you can rent it or maybe even check it out at a local theater.
That's cool. We'll promote it when we find out about it too.
Absolutely,
When
we
that
will.
moment comes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give a shout out for you. Absolutely. So pretty soon you're taking a gamble. You're young, crazy, talented, and taking a gamble and branching out on your own. Sooner or later, though, you got to be able to find something that's going to make you some money and make you a career, right?
Yeah, of course.
How's the prospects looking for that?
Well, I want to make my next feature in Arizona, and that's something that I'm working on. I really want to make a film that actually focuses on a lot of what I've learned at SUSD and my other roles. I want to make a film that's specifically about public education obstacles in Arizona. If people know about the issue, there's a long history of funding challenges and things like that that make it tough. And with our current administration, there are challenges for education in general when it comes to funding and how to persevere. And so I want to make a film that's sort of about those issues and kind of sheds a light on teachers who I think are, some of the most important professionals in our country. And then aside from that, I do own a production company called Torres Productions LLC. And actually, I've been in a situation for a while where I've turned down work because I had my day job, So if there's any Scottsdale business owners listening, I own a production company and we do full service commercial production. I've done work for ASU and Gamage. I worked on, political campaigns and different fundraising events. I've worked with the Charos. So, I have a resume and portfolio of work. And for me, obviously narrative films is what I want to do and I want to pursue that. But I really just love telling stories through video. And so, I want to be able to explore that along with my fiance who I'm marrying this summer. And she wants to build that with me. So that's what we're going to be trying.
Congratulations.
There you go.
So say the name of your company again.
Torres Productions LLC. And you also can find my personal portfolio at emiliofilms.com.
There you go. So if you have a need for a videographer or somebody that you might turn to Emilio for, there you go. You
Yeah,
should do
catch
that.
him now before he's gone.
He's going to be busy, for
Yeah.
sure. So the thing you want to do about education, is it more of a documentary kind of deal?
No, it's going to be actually a narrative film. I think obviously documentaries are amazing and they have a place in life, but I really think that when you can make a narrative film that connects with people and just happens to also be based in, real truth, you can really impact people and get conversations started. So, I'm writing that script right now, and when it's ready, I'll be going out to get investment just like I did for the last feature. And I would love to make it an Arizona production. There's, of course, the Arizona tax incentive that passed recently, so taking advantage of that. Right. And there's also some some actors that are big name talent that have Arizona roots that I'd want to pursue to cast in the film because, I'm really proud of my film because we cast local actors from my hometown, but definitely as my career progresses, I want to work, at that Hollywood studio level. And so every project hopefully will sort of enhance in that way.
I'm a big supporter of Phoenix Theater, and I've been on the board there before and a big supporter. They've got a wonderful lineup of local actors. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Well, actually, my fiance, Maggie Berry, soon to be Maggie Torres, she's acted in many productions of the Phoenix Theater Company.
Yeah.
And she definitely will have a role in the film. And that's the thing. I really believe in making movies that serve communities and also movies that get communities involved. I'll be reaching out to Scottsdale schools and I'll be reaching out to community partners so that they can be part of it. Because I think ultimately everybody loves movies. Everybody loves seeing big, something bigger than themselves come together. And I just like to provide opportunities for people to get involved and tell those stories.
I think given the state of education in Arizona, because we're always near the bottom of everything when it comes to grading us that way, I think there'd be a lot of interest in terms of people want to invest in a film like that in the education community here.
Yeah, I hope so. So reach out to me if you're interested.
And, and we maybe can open some doors too. We know some people in education.
We do know some people in
right?
education, and I was thinking, and since he's writing this narrative film and writing the script right now, maybe there's a scene in there where the protagonist needs to do a podcast.
Maybe that's true.
Actually, there's a camera right there.
Yeah.
It's going right now.
Exactly. He's writing this in his head as we continue to talk. You know that, don't you? Yeah. So do a little dreaming. Where are you 5 years from now?
Well, I would love 5 years from now for to expand my production company and be able to provide, storytelling services to Arizona and beyond. I'd love to have made my next feature film and be working on my next feature film after that. But, I tell you what, a big piece of advice my mentor from film school gave me, and just something I really believe, is that before I'm a filmmaker, before I'm an artist, I'm just a human, right? And I'm soon to be a husband, I'm a son. And so I'm really grateful for all the opportunities I've had to make movies and pursue stuff. And I try to stay grounded and just keep pushing forward on, this dream I have. But really, I got to credit, like I said, SUSD and everyone in Scottsdale and the Phoenix community who have supported me so far, embraced me so far. And I hope I can continue living in Phoenix. And like I said, my fiance, she's an actress at the Phoenix Theater Company and other theaters in the Valley, and we're both creative people. And so if we can build a career where she can keep acting and I can keep directing, then we'll be really happy.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
They're off to a great start.
Can you believe he's 24 years old?
I have a question here that says, advice for young creatives.
Oh, okay.
He is a young creative.
Yeah.
So we're getting young on you. We can talk about 14 years old or something. But let's ask that anyway. Young creatives, so especially those in high school, because you're at SUSD now, who are passionate about storytelling. What kind of advice would you give them if they want to pursue the kind of career that you're talking about?
I mean, what I would say is that if you are interested in being a creative person, like, we really live in the greatest time, because it used to be the case that if you want to learn filmmaking, you had to go to film school, you had to get expensive equipment. It's kind of cliche at this point, but really everybody has a professional grade camera in their pocket. Mm-hmm. We all have access to YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and these platforms where you can tell stories. I think the biggest hurdle stopping people who want to create is just starting. And, your stuff is going to suck at first in anything you do, but then you keep making, you get better. And actually something I'm really kind of, think is cool is if you go to my YouTube channel, I've kept, all my short films from when I first started up on my YouTube channel. So you can really see my progression, because I believe, like, just start making stuff and putting it out there.
That's great.
And yeah, just don't wait.
Yeah, just get her done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
People tell you that all the time. You got to fail to get good, right? So that's, you learn from your mistakes. You keep moving forward. So that's perfect, man. Yeah. Where'd you find this guy, Kevin?
My wife called me. It was so funny. I was home. My wife calls me on a Friday afternoon. She says, "What are we doing tonight?" Because we go to movies on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And she says, "What are we doing? You got plans tonight?" I'm like, "We don't." And she goes, "There's a guy who works at SUSD in our communications department, went to NYU Film School,
right? And
his film is showing at Phoenix Film Festival tonight." First of all, I've never been to Phoenix Film Festival, always wanted to go.
Right.
And second of all, so she sent me the trailer, and I watched the trailer. I'm like, absolutely, let's go.
Do it.
Met Emilio there, and just fell in love with the film, and I've been so excited to have him on ever since, right? And you can see why.
I want to see the film because my little journey in Alaska just a year ago, I fell in love with Alaska. It's so beautiful. I'd actually had somewhat tempted, maybe I will do this, either finding a place to live there or moving there even.
Yeah.
I just love it. It's beautiful.
There's some snowbirding from Arizona and Alaska for sure. And I always get jokes because I live in Arizona now. It's the hottest state, and I grew up in the coldest state. And, but no, I mean that's really the cheat code of making a really beautiful movie is you just shoot in Alaska because you can kind of point the camera anywhere and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I bet. You can't go wrong. Just keep it in focus, right? And you'll be okay, right?
How long did it take you to write the script for the new film?
The next one I'm making?
Yeah, or the one you're talking about with the education one?
Well, I mean,
You're probably working on multiple projects at the same time, I bet, right?
Yeah. I mean, and also, what's interesting about myself as a filmmaker is I never really dreamed of being a writer specifically. My love really is in directing and working with actors and telling stories. And so, I will also say, like, I love reading scripts, and if people have a script that they want to see produced, I love to read those. But I'll be actively writing it, and it really kind of depends on the producibility. If someone were to come to me and say, "Hey, I want to invest in this film," then the timeline of me writing that script becomes a lot shorter, right? Because I'm motivated.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm mainly just focused on, like I said, building my production company out, touring the ladder at different festivals, and then in the background developing my next feature.
I see. Yeah, you got a little stuff to do between now and then.
Yes,
Just a little bit, but boy, it's all good. And I'll tell Kevin, mean, we're the budding superstar. We're going to come back 10 years from now.
He won't be.
say-
We won't take our calls.
He won't return our phone calls then.
I'll always return your phone calls. Don't worry.
He'll have like 6 assistants that we'll get back to you. Yeah, for sure. Fabulous conversation. You're 24 years old, and he's inspiring me in an unbelievable way right now.
Right.
Just hearing what he's done so young in his career.
What do we do on this podcast? What do we do? What's our goal?
Keep it all positive about highlighting people who are doing wonderful things in our community.
Perfect example.
There we go, right here. Yeah. And so, Amelia, it's been absolutely wonderful catching up with you today. Love the career path that you're on. Can't wait to follow your career and see more movies as you develop them. So thanks for all that you're doing for Scottsdale. And in a way, he's putting Scottsdale on the map, too. So,
really is.
That's as well as putting Alaska on the map.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think I'm a huge advocate of the power of a movie to connect people to new experiences, to new communities they're not aware of, and I'll just hopefully do that for the rest of my life.
It'd be cool if you get one of your films on Black Mirror upcoming season.
Oh yeah, Netflix hire me. I can
Right?
make a latter Black Mirror version.
It's
for sure.
very, if you're from Netflix, go check out the Mirror. Go check out the Ladder because
there you
it's
go.
very much in line with what you guys are already doing.
Fantastic, for sure. Amelia, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Good luck with everything ahead. Can't wait to see how you do. And thanks to all of you for listening. Our podcast sponsored by Scott, the Scottsdale Coalition of Today and Tomorrow. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.